This is Optimal Living Daily, episode 3183. To accomplish big things, think big, but act small. Part 2 by Jay Harrington of lifeandwhim.com. And I'm Justin Malik. Happy Friday. Welcome to the old podcast, the OLD podcast, Optimal Living Daily, where I read to you like a big ongoing audiobook, but from many different authors. And today being a continuation from yesterday. So I'd recommend listening to yesterday's episode first. But if you're all caught up, let's get right to part 2 and start optimizing your life. To accomplish big things, think big, but act small. Part 2 by Jay Harrington of lifeandwhim.com. Distractions come in many forms. At the office, relentless email, mind-numbing, soul-sucking meetings, chatty colleagues, LinkedIn, phone calls, the window washing guy outside your office. At home, the kids, the dog, heaps of laundry, dirty dishes, television, Facebook, the comfy couch. Ever go on the internet just to check out one thing and then emerge from a daze 20 minutes later wondering what the heck just happened? You get the idea. In fact, that minute or two you intend to spend online checking Facebook is costing you much more. According to a study conducted by Gloria Mark, who studies digital distraction at the University of California, Irvine, it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds for us to return to our original task after an interruption. Do the math on that during the course of an 8-hour day, and you'll see why interruptions aren't some trifling annoyance, they're productivity killers. To avoid the work distraction cycle that leads to unproductive days, you need to set firm boundaries for yourself and others. You need to create a work environment that fosters the type of focused work required to achieve big things. Number 2, intense, consistent work. Thinking big is expansive thinking. Thinking small is restrictive thinking. Thinking big is all about possibilities. Thinking small is all about limitations. Have big dreams? Well, you need to think big. However, the size of our dreams is what often stops us from pursuing them. The task ahead seems so momentous that we don't even start. We assume we need long blocks of uninterrupted time to make progress, and because we're busy and don't have long blocks of time, we just give up instead. It's okay, in fact, it's necessary to think big and have big dreams if you want to accomplish big things. But the way to get there is not by acting big, it's by acting small. Success is sequential. It results from tackling lots of small things on a consistent basis, not trying to tackle everything at once. Dominoes fall one at a time. In practical terms, what this means is that it's necessary to break big and unwieldy tasks into a bunch of small and manageable tasks, and then work intensely and consistently to accomplish each one. You've probably heard this one before because it's timeless. How do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. And number 3, establish important priorities. There's never enough time in the day, and you probably can't work longer hours at home or at the office than you already do. So it's important to work smarter. No matter how skilled a manager you may be, it's tough to manage through the chaos of a typical day without understanding the hierarchy of your priorities. In this sense, productive people, effective people, practice time curation as opposed to time management. They discern, they pick and choose, they don't multitask, they prioritize. And then they ruthlessly honor, defend, and work in accordance with those priorities. In other words, when it comes to how they structure their days, they're essentialists. This is the central argument of Greg McKeown's excellent book, Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. It's a book that espouses the importance of focusing on the most important essential tasks on your plate. McKeown describes his methodology as the disciplined pursuit of less. At its core, essentialism is about setting priorities. According to McKeown, quote, "Essentialism is not about how to get more things done. It's about how to get the right things done, end quote. For example, if you have a business idea, there's no point worrying about what your logo and website will look like or what your domain name will be before you've nailed down far more essential priorities, such as what product or service you're selling, to whom, for what price, and what your expenses will be, so you'll know if the idea is even financially viable in the first place. You can work hard, but hard work matters little if you're working on the wrong thing. As Henry David Thoreau wrote, quote, "It is not enough to be busy. So are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about?" End quote. Before worrying about eliminating distractions and developing a deep work habit, the most important step in accomplishing big things is spending the necessary time to identify your most important priorities. Think big and act small. It's not all of the big, bold things we do during our lives and careers that lead to success. It's the small actions taken every day that make the difference and lead to compounding results over time. Author and marketing guru Seth Godin wrote on his blog, quote, "The thing is, incremental daily progress, negative or positive, is what actually causes transformation. A figurative drip, 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 showing up every single day, gaining in strength, organizing for the long haul, building connection, laying track. This subtle but difficult work is how culture changes," end quote. It's how lives and careers change too. Clear goals, the right priorities, small, consistent actions. This is the formula to leverage the power of progress in order to make big things happen. You just listened to part 2 of the post titled, "To Accomplish Big Things, Think Big, but Act Small," by Jay Harrington of lifeandwhim.com, and I'll be right back with my commentary. Thank you again to Jay. I might have to read that book by Greg McKeown. I've seen it mentioned here and there over the years. And even though it's a bit older now, I've seen some recent mentions of it, so I think that's a sign to finally check it out. That book is called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And in my many years of entrepreneurship, I couldn't agree more when it comes to choosing the task. I was definitely one of those people who would come up with a big idea, but then work on what was probably the fun parts first, the logo, maybe making t-shirts of the company, buying the domain, the .com, maybe getting business cards. But those aren't really adding value to the company itself. It's not focusing on the actual product. One of the biggest strides were made in my own life was when I finally started creating, and creating the most, like releasing an episode of this podcast every day. It could be argued that releasing an episode of this podcast is a big deal, like a project in itself, but 1 out of thousands isn't really that big in the grand scheme of things. It's just one baby step, but a critical, small, consistent action that has led to big things happening. And other parts of my life follow that same principle. So a good one to think about today and this weekend. Have a great start to your weekend, and I'll be back tomorrow as usual. So I'll see you there where your optimal life awaits.